So this video outlines how to replace the square peg in the SRP. So you start by removing all 12 screws. So let's get started. So the square peg allows the motor to interface with the this cup, and it's the part of the SRP that feels the most force, and unfortunately I can't exactly change the shape of the motor shaft. I kind of had to buy the motor as is and then figure out how to connect the motor with the rest of the SRP. So it is the part of the SRP that experiences the most force, and I have refined the process as I have revved the SRP. So it started off using a nut and bolt technique, and then I switched to glue sometime in the middle of the process, and then I switched back and I made it much more refined. So anyways, that's the issue. I'm just going to remove these screws. Now there are two screws that might be hard to get access to, and they're the two screws that are next to the square peg. And if you can't get access to them because the square peg is in the wrong orientation, so right now it's in the correct orientation, but if it is in this orientation, you can see that the square peg is actually blocking access to two of the screws. So what you do is just take the cup and you rotate it about 1/8 of a turn until you can access the two screws. So I'm just going to loosen all 6 screws. 6 of the screws hold the motor cap in place, and 6 of the screws hold the motor in place. So just loosen all 12 screws. Unfortunately, this issue is common enough that I'm actually making a video about it. And yeah, if you do experience this problem, you're probably one of the first people to buy an SRP, and you're almost definitely one of the pre-orders. And I thank you for your support, and I apologize for these issues. And I also thank you for informing me that this is an issue, so I know how to fix it. So remove the outer 6, you can remove this, and then you take off another 6 screws, and you can pull out the motor. Now you won't be able to pull out the motor all the way because the wire is holding it in place, but what you can do is you can don't grab the motor, grab the wire and pull the wire, and you buy yourself a bit of extra working room. So now if you look at this motor here, this shaft where the square peg meets the motor shaft, that is probably, the motor shaft is probably spinning in that square peg, and that is sealed in probably using either a screw or using glue. And if it's using a screw, well, either way, since the motor is spinning inside the square peg, you could probably yank it off with your hand. But if not, you can just loosen the screw. And then, so now it's off. If you did get it glued, which means there's no bolt, you're probably going to have to scrape some of the glue off. And then I'm going to send you a replacement peg, and it's going to have the little bolt in it. So I have refined this piece over time, and there's very subtle differences, especially to the measurements. So even if it looks identical, it is ever so subtly different, and it's going to be less likely to break. But if it does, I'm probably actually going to send you 2. So unfortunately, there isn't, I haven't figured out a better solution to fix this other than to just refine this piece to really fine tolerances. But anyways, let's just pretend that was a new one and I just put it on. So I'm going to tighten the screw just a little bit. Don't tighten it too much, because inside this there's a nut, and the nut is the main thing holding it in place, and then the bolt kind of holds it in place just a little bit more. But if you tighten the bolt down too much, it actually pushes the nut away from the D shaft. So you want to tighten it until it stops, and then you want to go an extra quarter turn. So now you fit it back in, and hopefully, if you were smart, you didn't just dump out all the screws. If you did dump out the screws, you kind of have to get them back in. So now, probably should have said that early in the video. So now that the new square peg is in, I'm gonna bolt it back down. Oh, before you do that, you probably just want to confirm that the new square peg is firmly in by grabbing it. Go on. There we go. So one of the ways you can confirm the strength that the new peg is actually secure, put it on the cup and rotate it back and forth. You can see it doesn't break off. So anyways, this is the new one. Or pretend it's the new one, because this one never broke, but yours has, and let's just pretend that this is the new one that I shipped you. Put the motor in, line up the screw holes, bolt in the 6 bolts holding the motor in. Maybe the screws came out. If they came out, I'm sorry about that. Just gonna have to jiggle it until the screws find their holes again. I'm gonna pretend that doesn't have any sexual innuendos. Bolt those back in. While you're doing that, you might as well put this back in. So right now you have all this extra wire. You're going to pull the wire here until this knot reaches that hole, and that's what provides strain relief for the wire. Put the cap back on and just tighten everything down. Oh geez, line it up properly, and there, and just tighten everything down, and you will have replaced the square peg. So far, no one with the newest version of the peg has encountered any issues. Otherwise, I would have come up with an even newer version. So, hey. If you're receiving the replacement parts, then at least feel confidence in knowing that none of the replacement parts so far have failed. But if they do, I'm sorry. Please let me know so I can continue to beat my head against this problem. Tighten down all the bolts. How did the motor... So right now the screw got blocked. I'm going to turn it a little bit. Tighten it down. And one of the screws came out, so I'm just going to jiggle it until the screw finds its hole again. And tighten down that last screw. I apologize for the issue. And if it fails again, let me know so I can take another shot at improving that part.